Hello.
Hello. Hi, how are you? That's, yeah, I can see you. Yes, crystal clear. How about you? Can you see me? Very good. How are you? That's good. No, 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 that's okay. I thought with all the emails back and forth, it'd be easier just to catch up like this and hopefully address any of your, remaining questions or anything that you might have. So yeah, I'm just going to pull up your email. So I have to ask, how do you pronounce the name? Sepung. Sepung. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I get it right. Um, so um, your email yesterday at 11:30, I've got it here. I might just pull it up on my screen. I'll share my screen. Can you see that? Yeah. So I guess the first thing here, you said I'd like to confirm that the stage one concept study, whether with Mark or otherwise, can include an assessment of potential uplift. So that would be the idea behind that stage one concept study, is to determine, with consultation with myself, whether it be with Mark or Nora or whoever it might be, I'll do a planning assessment to say, look, Mark or whoever it might be, this is what you can achieve on the site. Show us in plan form what that might look like and how that might translate to X number of units, 50, 100 units, whatever it might be. Okay. So, yeah, so early assessment suggests that you can achieve that additional, the additional affordable housing uplift, a bonus. So that's correct. So we'll obviously, once that's confirmed with, should you want to proceed, I'll work closely with whoever it might be, Mark or otherwise, to ensure that is shown to its maximum potential on the site. Obviously, you want to achieve as much as you can. So stage one will work through that process. So hopefully that answers that first point in your email. Oh, 10 questions. Okay. What's that? Sorry. Do you have them on your screen? Yeah. How about you share your screen? Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, look, as I'm sure you can appreciate, Sapung, that answer is, how long's a piece of string kind of thing. Without actually working through the architectural detail with, Mark or otherwise, it's very hard to confirm what that's likely to achieve at this stage. Obviously, I haven't been engaged to do any work on this, and your question, the answer to that question would require me to start working on it and engaged with an architect to answer that question. Yeah. Yeah. Look, you could get anywhere up to 100. I would say it's a broad number, like it's a large number, but look, it all comes down to unit mix. How many studio, how many one bedders, how many two bedders, how many three bedders. That all impacts on the maximum yield on the site. Yeah, look, I can only guess, Sepong, and if you want to guess, I would guess maybe 60 to 80. Yeah, with the 30%, with the additional bonus height and floor space ratio. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But uh, these are just this is just speculation because we need to work out, you know, what's the highest efficiency design in terms of building separation, setbacks, building height, deep soil requirements, landscaping requirements, car parking requirements, unit mix. Councils have different requirements for unit mix. You need X number of studio apartments, X number of 3-bedroom apartments. There's so many variables that will ultimately determine the number of units. Now, yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, no. I think you can. We can obtain or get that bonus. Absolutely. Whether it's the full maximum 30%, because it works on a sliding scale. 30% being the maximum, but you obviously then need to provide a minimum number of affordable housing units dedicated for affordable housing. So, the what I can say to that is that we can absolutely achieve the affordable housing bonus. The question is whether we can achieve the full 30% or it might be 20%. And this is what will be worked through in close consultation and detail with the architect. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Oh, how many stories? So at the moment, what's the number of is it 29 meters? So allow for say on average 3 meters. 3 meters. So it could be anywhere between and this depends on whether how much affordable housing we provide, because obviously the more affordable housing we provide, the 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 greater number of units which are provided. But look, I would account for anywhere between 7 and 9 stories. Yeah, yeah. Look, obviously there's a big price difference between the two. Mark being obviously cheaper, considerably cheaper. Now, I've worked and I'm currently working on a couple of uh, apartment projects with Nora. Um, she's very good. Um, the quality of her work, her output is very good, and I work well with her. I work with Mark on other projects. I haven't worked with him on an apartment building project yet. I know he works on them because he's come to me with some inquiries, early preliminary inquiries for some sites. Um, Now, look, I've seen the work that Mark has produced for apartments, and it is good. If it was my project, if you're asking me if this was my project and who I would appoint as an architect, I would probably appoint Nora. Um, that's purely and simply only based on my experience working with her directly on similar projects. What's that? Oh, fantastic! Yeah, look, I can't fault Nora. You know, she produces good work and she works quickly. She's very efficient in what she does. Um, uh, yeah, look, I couldn't fault Nora and her work. Mm. Yeah. Mhm. Um, Look, if you wanted to do that, we'd obviously, yeah, get Mark to do the early preliminary work. We could go back to Nora and say, look, we have had some preliminary work done, which shows us potential for, you know, X number of units. Can you adjust or review your existing quote to reflect this work that's already been done? Um, I think that would, her current price would come down. Obviously, that price accounts for this preliminary work that we're considering marked in doing. So, um, look, it's happened before, in projects. I've been doing this a long time, where you get an architect that starts a concept design, doing some preliminary drawings, understanding yield and everything on the site, and the architects change. It happens. Um, Look, have you done many development projects yourself? Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So, sorry, just so I've got that clear in my head, you're wondering if we go with Nora from the beginning. Uh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We could just say to Nora, look, thanks for your quote. The client, Sapung, has decided to proceed with stage one. He wants to understand the uplift on the site. What that will show in terms of yield. Can you make a start on stage one? And depending on what that shows, she'll come back with her work. What she'll produce. Um, and then at that point, obviously, you decide what you want to do, whether that be, put it on hold for now, or you want to continue with the rest of the project. I think no. Let me just pull up her quote. So it was in there. Here we go. I'm just pulling up a quote now. So the concept design is stage two. So I'll share my screen. Yeah. So that's the preliminary work. Yeah. What's that? Mark's cheaper. 25,000. Yeah, yeah. So there's three zeros. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why you might want to go with Mark. Yeah. So what might happen is we might go with Mark, which means we don't need that done. That should have to confirm with Nora if you wanted to go with Nora, but that should go away. So it would really mean that's 25,000 at 25,000. So that would come down to 50. because Mark would have done that concept design. Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. So I'm just pulling up Mark because you came back with some queries, and one sec. I'm just. Yeah, so you came back to me with a couple of points and questions, and I'll share my screen again. Um, so you came back with a couple of questions or queries on. Sorry, you there, Sipul? Yeah, sorry, your screen's froze. Oh, there we go. Sorry, you froze a bit. These were your queries. So um, so you asked Mark, would stage one include an indicative apartment yield, number of units, potential story height outcome, preliminary view on the likelihood of achieving bonus provisions, high level parking feasibility, overall development strategy and direction? Mark confirmed yes to all these. So his stage one will confirm apartment yield, number of stories, bonus provision for the FSR and height, the high level parking feasibility, as well as development strategy and direction. It's important to understand, though, Sapung, that Mark's work, stage one work, will work very closely with my work. So the fee proposal that I gave you will includes a preliminary planning report, which will feed into all this here. So Mark will take a lot of my work and work that into his stage one concept design to confirm, the number of units. So I'll do almost a mini planning assessment against all the controls for the site, and Mark will take that assessment and work that into his concept design. So in short, to answer your question, his work, stage one work, will include all this here. Yep. So the 30% that we've spoken about. Yeah. 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 Sure. Sorry. Say that again. You're cutting out a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would probably be, and it's going to depend if you go with Nor, because your architect's always your biggest cost. Uh, you go, yeah, look, assuming you go with Nora, which will be the biggest cost, I would allow for, look, to be on the safe side, Sapung, I wouldn't allow for less than 100. It might be between 100 and maybe 120, 125. I don't want to say less than 100 and it come more than 100. Um, your next biggest cost after your architect's probably your engineer. Um, civil engineer, stormwater design that you need to get, and then all your other consultants. You know, they all add up in terms of cost, but they're all relatively smaller costs. Even my cost is nowhere near the engineer or architect. Yeah, yeah, a lot. Yeah, with a name like Western Sydney Planning, you think that yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, look, it won't be this. It won't be 2026. I'd allow for the first quarter of 2027. Yeah, look, I would. It as a very high level time frame, Sapung. I would. It will allow. We'll need to allow enough of sufficient time for all the consultants to um, get their work done, which takes time to coordinate all those consultants. Um, as a ballpark figure, I'd allow for 3 to 4 months for that work to be done, and that's before you even get the DA into council. And then you need to allow look. Penrith Council lately have been quite good in terms of timing. They're working very well, but I would allow for anywhere between 6 to 9 months. Yeah, developers. No, developers are active, depending on what area of Sydney you're in. I have I have some contacts, developer contacts. If you wanted me to put you in touch with them later on, um, yeah. Look, Sydney is a funny thing. Depending on what area of Sydney you're in, will really determine how much interest and activity there is from developers. Um, I've got a couple of projects in Sutherland Shire at the moment, and there's a huge amount of interest from developers. You know, sites getting snapped up all the time. And there's areas of Western Sydney, Northwest, Southwest Sydney, where developers are very active, and then some areas where there's less interest, I suppose you might say. Um, but if you wanted, look, what you might want to do is get the stage one work done and just say, look, you can achieve 60 units from this site. Here's some preliminary concept work. You might take that to a prospective developer and say, look, you know, how are you interested? Yeah. Yeah, so rather than necessarily committing to, the later stages, DA and that, you might just take that effectively Mark's work to a developer, which might give them enough comfort to say, look, yeah, you can achieve 60 units. This is what I'm willing to, um, you know, put forward. Yeah, 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 yes, yeah, yeah. If this was my project, what would I do with this? Um, when you say do with this, are you talking about what would I do from here? Like, what's the next step? Yeah. Um, what would I do from here is look, it's a very good site. You know, the whole area around St Mary's has been recently rezoned, as you know. So there is strong interests. It's a council-led rezoning as well. Council put forward this rezoning, so there's strong interest for St Mary's as a whole area. So I would, again, if this was me, I would be pressing ahead, full steam ahead to get at the very least stage one done, um, and and go from there. I think there's a huge potential for the site, Sepung, in my experience. So it's exciting. It's exciting, and I think how long have you had the? Did you buy it before the rezoning or after? Right. Yes. Yeah. So you bought it at a good time. Yeah. Yeah. So no, look, Sapung, it's all positive, I think, and it's a good time for housing. You know, the state government is under a lot of pressure to push through housing. There's a lot of pressure on councils to approve housing. St Mary's is well located. It's in a growing area. Give it another 5 to 10 years, and St Mary's, you won't be able to recognise it because there's going to be a huge amount of work done in the area. So, as I say with any client, when it comes to housing opportunities like this one in St Mary's, there are only going to be positives from it, from you as a client and the owner. I think that the the only challenges, I suppose you might say, are you know the economic uncertainties at the moment. You can't escape that it is what it is. But in saying that, where there's always a little bit of uncertainty around the economy, there's always opportunities. So I think this is an opportunity for you, in my opinion. And if this was my side, I would treat it as such. So yeah. Yeah, no, that's out of my wheelhouse. Again, you might, once you do the stage one work, if I put you in touch with a potential developer, or you might want to get some. Look, I would never take what a real estate agent says as gospel. But you might want to go and have a meeting with some local real estate agents and say, look, what are one, two, three better apartments selling for at the moment in the surrounding area. Not just St Mary's, but the wider area around. And mm, yeah, yeah, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's generally the way the developers like it. But as I said, different councils require minimum number of three-bedroom apartments. Obviously, apartment living is becoming more and more prominent. More and more people are living in apartments, um, including families. Small families. One or two kids. That's why there needs to be three bedders provided. Um, yeah, yep, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, look, given that you're working to that time frame next year, I would press ahead as quickly as possible to get at least that stage 1 done, which will give you some idea of, okay, do I need to go to next stage, or do you want to sell with this work done? But we need to, get onto it sooner rather than later, because all these things take a bit of time. Yeah, yeah. So do you want me to? Do you have my quote, or do you want me to resend it with Mark? I'll forward my quote along with Mark's, just so you've got it there at the top of your inbox, so you don't have to go uh, looking for it. I'll I'll send this through right now, so you should have it in your inbox any moment. All right. Hopefully look forward to working with you. Thank you. Have a good day. See you. Bye. Bye.